Okay, so next phase. What else is cool and interesting about stress management? Here's something. Not all stress is bad, right? Now that, some of you might know that, some of you might say, wait a minute, what's that about? We have a tendency, it's in our language, it's in the vernacular, I want to eliminate all my stress, I got to get rid of it, I want to have a stress-free life. Well, good luck, because if you're functional and you do things that are worthwhile, there's going to be stress. And by the way, here's the side note, a lot of it is very positive and joyful. I'm a snowboarder, I don't know if anybody likes winter sports, that in the nervous system creates some tension and stress and arousal. Thank goodness, because I need to be hyper-focused and see where the trees are and be focused on my body and make sure I'm not running into anybody. So there's a functional aspect to stress as well. Getting married. Joyful experiences, I hope, but it can be stressful. Same response in the nervous system. Watching someone get married, watching your kids get married, a promotion, graduating college. So to the nervous system, it doesn't make that much of a distinction. It registers as stress. So what's the point? Stress can be functional, and let us have a more nuanced view of what we're talking about here. That's not the kind of thing we want to get rid of. We want to see when stress becomes distress and gets us into unhealthy functioning. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. And how can we move the distress and unhealthy levels of arousal into the middle zone?
So stress is not good or bad, really. It's the level of stress that we really want to pay attention to. And as we also talked about, it's very functional and it's necessary for optimal performance. So if you look at this, can you see? The Yerkes-Dodson curve. This is based on research that was done many years ago, but what it's showing is that we all need a certain level of arousal. So as the arousal and stress goes up, you can see that the performance begins to increase. And that's why, in terms of sports and things, when we're doing projects, we need an increased level of arousal to perform optimally. And as you can see, there's kind of an optimal level of arousal. At some point, though, as the arousal or the stress level continues to peak and go up, what happens is it begins to undermine our performance, and it begins to decline. And as you can see here, so we all have experience with this, right? How many times when our stress level has gone up or we feel very anxious, we started to feel like we couldn't think or focus clearly. We weren't able to concentrate, and it just really can impair our performance. So we want to look at, really look at and pay attention to the level of arousal that we're experiencing, and then begin to kind of center ourselves so that the stress does not become distress, okay? That's really the key, and a lot of what Dan and I talk about today is it's not really about the stress, it's kind of just paying attention to our arousal levels, and over time, even tuning into yourself several times a day. I'm just noticing, what's my arousal level like, right? Is it in the moderate level? You could think of it as a 4, 5, or 6 maybe out of a 10. Or is it more of a 7 or an 8? And then begin to you could use these tools that we shared today, and then others that you may know and do yourselves right now to kind of bring back your arousal, bring it down to about a 4 or 5 or 6 again. And you could do that periodically throughout the day, and that'll really help stay in a more calmer state and reduce your overall level of stress. Well, before I go into this, what are some things, we'll just take 2 or 3, some things you do now to kind of help reduce your stress now and kind of try to center yourselves? Just curious. What was that? Breathe. Okay, very nice. That's important, right? We all want to keep breathing. And so don't want to stop that. But it's interesting, when we're really stressed, we often breathe more shallowly, right? We take kind of shorter breaths, and that could often make us feel more anxious. But yes, focusing on your breath, great. We're going to do a nice demonstration about breathing that can be very helpful. What else does? Yeah. Meditation, okay, very nice. I'm sure. How have you found that?
It's hard for me to get there.
Okay.
But if I do, I definitely feel.
You feel better.
Calmer and better.
Okay, great.
And I know if I'm really agitated, because I have recording basically that I listen to.
Okay.
It's very helpful in like getting you back to, calm.
Right. Very nice. Anybody else? Oh, sure.
Attempt to look at a positive outcome rather than worry about negative.
Okay, that's great. Very nice. What I'm sharing here and what Dan and I want to focus on today, and some of you are already doing it, which is great, is focus on what we call the 3 centering points. And we like to use and focus on this because we have them with us, right? We can, no matter where we go, they're accessible to us, our breath, our body, and our mind. So it always allows us to center ourselves and reduce our stress. We're going to start with the breath, and for the breathing, I want to share an exercise. It's really a practice. It's called diaphragmatic breathing. This is a practice that I love because it's really what we do naturally. And diaphragmatic breathing is a way of breathing that allows our body to, it triggers the relaxation response in our body. And it's a breathing that goes from our chest to our diaphragm and through our stomach. And actually, when we're born, babies actually breathe through their stomach and their diaphragm. If you notice a little baby, they're breathing, their little belly goes up and down, right? And when we get older, as we get older, we start to breathe. We're kind of taught to hold our stomachs in to, for looks or appearance, right? Or maybe we're wearing tight clothes, things like that. But we start holding our stomach in, and what happens is our breath actually becomes more shallow. We start breathing, and really it just reaches our chest area. And what happens with that is we wound up receiving less oxygen in our body because the breath is mostly through our in and through our chest rather than through our stomach and our diaphragm. So I'm going to have Dan demonstrate. So I'd like him just take a few normal breaths, okay? And you can see just where do you see him breathing? What do you notice going up and down? Okay, very nice. I paid him to do that. So right, it's through the chest area, okay? But if you practice, and once you do this, I think I'm right in the light here, I'm just gonna move for a moment. The wonderful thing about diaphragmatic breathing, it doesn't need to be a practice for very long. It actually becomes a habit and automatic. So you begin to breathe automatically from your diaphragm, and you no longer need to think about it or do it. It becomes natural and a much healthier way of breathing, and it keeps your body in a relaxed, a much more relaxed state. So I want Dan to just take a few deep breaths, and as you notice, you could even put your hand down for a moment. Okay, where do you notice the breathing now? His breath. What's rising, right? It's mostly his belly, right? His stomach. Okay, very nice. So that's what happens when we do it naturally, and that's really diaphragmatic breathing. How many of you have heard of that? Okay, so a good number of you. All right, very nice. So what I'd like to do is we're just going to do a quick demonstration for some of you who haven't done it before, and you could just practice it as well. So let's just put our hands on our stomachs and then on our chest. Okay, great. Let's see, does everybody? And as you do it, just notice, take a few breaths in. They don't have to be too deep, but just take a few breaths in and notice for yourself what's rising mostly for you. Is it your chest, or is it more your belly? I'm going to look around. Okay, this is your own observation, right? As we talked about observation. So what I'd like to do now is, as you're breathing in, just breathe now, begin to breathe through your nose. Let the breath come in, and you can think of it as taking a nice breath of fresh air or beautiful flowers you're breathing in. And as the breath comes in, just allow it to go through into your stomach, almost like there's a balloon in your stomach. And as the air comes in, just let your belly relax and allow the air to fill, almost like fill the balloon. And as you breathe out, you could use your hand like you're blowing out candles, okay? And just blow out. And as you'll notice your belly going in towards your spine, okay? So let's try that. Breathe in, notice your belly slightly increasing. Okay, let's see. And then take your hands and just blow out like this. And as you do, you'll notice your stomach going in. And it's a muscle. So if we haven't been using it, right, it's going to be a little bit awkward. It may feel like it's not coming. But as you practice this only takes about 2 or 3 minutes. You can do it several times a day. And within 3 to 4 weeks of doing this, you'll actually begin to breathe like this more automatically. And you'll notice, for example, now when you see me, where am I breathing? Let's see. It's mostly the stomach, right? Right? However, I do breathe at times when I'm stressed sometimes, or if something's coming up, I can catch myself now breathing more through my chest, right? More quickly, and then I'll automatically then focus on breathing through the belly again. So we just wanted to share that with you because it's a very powerful exercise and it becomes natural, so it'll really be helpful in reducing your stress over time.
First area of awareness, breath. What comes next? The body, right? And the body is interesting in that we carry it around with us from birth to death, and it can register such incredible experiences, pleasure, positive, but can also register and hold tensions and stress. So before we move into how the body holds that, just a quick piece on the internal body and stress. I won't go too much into this, but just wanted to get you to see the internal fight or flight response, and the other side, the rest and digest response. That's less talked about, right? So fight or flight, in years back when we lived in harsher conditions, the tiger would walk into the campsite, right? And immediately the pupils would dilate. The blood would move away from the extremities and rush to the bigger muscles. The heart rate would accelerate, hence the blood to the larger muscles. Salivation is inhibited, digestion slows down, because who cares about digestion right now? We're in trouble, so that we can mobilize to run or to fight. Not a problem, that's adaptive, good. The problem becomes when we move from stress to distress, is that we have sympathetic nervous system over-responding. And guess what? That's the culture that we live in now. Emails, texts, social media, work piling up, do more in less amount of time. The economy, right? We're hyper, we're living in that mode. Not good for the body, not good for the mind. We need to take back control. And there was a study done probably 20 years ago now, it seemed like yesterday, where they trained office managers that were answering phones all day to just take one deep cleansing breath before they answered the phone. They did this work at hospitals, and they reported, the secretaries and office managers reported greater job satisfaction, their health improved, and the people on the other line that were used to calling them, they didn't even recognize their voices. So we can do something to move and shift from this over-responding to this area. I don't need to go too far into this. This is basically the opposite. When the tiger's been killed and moved out of the camp, right? We're going to have a meal now, back to digestion. We get warmer, heart rate goes down, everything relaxes, and that's where healing occurs. That's where good feelings occur. Also, good decision making and better functioning, right? Back into that mode of a healthy level of arousal. Okay, so just, we'll go to that later. Just a little bit on what happens inside. Now, the rest of the body, we all register stress in different ways, right? Some of us, it's in the stomach, nervous bladder, irritable bowel syndrome, so on. Others, it's muscle tension, that's me, right? By the end of the day, if I'm at the computer all day, shoulders, crawling up to the ear, chronic headaches. We're laughing. You get that too? Okay, good. Not good, but I feel like we're, simpatico. Okay. What else can it be? It can be heart palpitations, sweating, and so on. So, headache. Yep, absolutely. So there was a researcher I'd like to introduce you to, Edmund Jacobson, in the 1930s, MD, Ph.D., did a lot of research on this and came up with something which I think is very interesting. He studied it and said, an anxious mind cannot exist in a relaxed body. Pretty interesting. So that tells us if we can somehow impact the stress in the body, maybe the mind will follow. It's not the reverse. So he came up with this technique called progressive muscle relaxation. From the research review that I've done, definitely the most researched, evidence-based with the most robust results in terms of really having an impact on our health, well-being, and managing stress. Don't have time to take you through a full progressive muscle relaxation, but it basically goes through the body parts, tensing and releasing, and you're coordinating that with the breath. That's the short version. This is also in our book. We describe that in there in greater detail if you're interested in learning more. And there's plenty of materials on PMR out there. But just so that we get a little sense of it, why don't we just practice a brief PMR session. So just get comfortable in your chairs. If you can uncross your legs and kind of remove stuff off your lap if it's possible. And just a caveat, if you're in any pain, physical pain in any of the body parts that I do now, do not tense that part. Just do the release part. Does that make sense? You don't want to tense any parts that are in physical pain. Okay, so just take a moment to notice your breathing. Back to observation, wherever it is. You don't have to do diaphragmatic, or you might choose to, up to you. And then bring your attention to your hands. Just notice your hands. And then on an inhale, inhale the breath and bring the hands to fists and squeeze. Hold your inhale. Notice the tension in the hands. Hold it. And now exhale slowly and release the hands. You can exhale through the nose or the mouth, like Dana was showing you before. Good. Notice the difference between tension and relaxation. Good. Relax the rest of the body as we focus on the hands. Inhale again and slowly bring the hands into fists. Inhale, squeeze the hands. Notice the tension, study it. See it. Then exhale and release the hands gently. And release the rest of the body as well as you continue to exhale. Now, inhale and bring the shoulders up toward the ears. Let the arms hang, but bring the shoulders up to the ears. And just inhale, hold the inhale, notice the tension. And then exhale and gently let them drop. And let the shoulders drop even a centimeter or two lower than they were before. If you're like me, you'll feel a little chill in the upper spine there. That's a release of tension. Good. See some head nods. Inhale again, slowly bringing the shoulders up. Tense, squeeze it, hold it, and exhale, and release. Calm, comfortable release that's in your control. Stay in the released position and enjoy that for a moment. Very good. You can allow your eyes to open. Wish we could do more, right? So that's just a little taste, and we go through all the body parts for a full progressive muscle relaxation. If you're practicing at home, you could do it in a chair or on a hard surface like the floor, lying down.
You know, one of the great things about doing something like this periodically, intermittently throughout the day, is that it will help us relax and just take the edge off a little bit. And again, bring our arousal down. And so that's, Dan, we're talking about centering point. So the body was the second centering point. The third one is what we want to talk about is the mind that we're focusing on. And the mind, we know, based on the thoughts that we have, the perceptions that we may be experiencing, feelings, judgments that we have, All of those can, over time, increase our stress level, right? Depending on the nature of the thoughts or the perceptions that we have. So one of the things we want us to ask you and to become familiar with is, what kind of relationship do you have with your thoughts? Right? Because we all have relationships with our thoughts. And is it more like a soap opera or a stargazer? So for a soap opera, right, how many of us can get very attached to our soap operas, okay? I know I did at some point, and I'm sure we all have. And the characters, right, so we're looking to see what happens, and we can kind of get very intense. Some of us may be sitting on the edge of the seat. We may be even, talking to the television at some point, right? So we're very engaged with their soap opera. Or you could pick whatever it is for you that you really like, right, a game show. But there's a very intense attachment or connection. And so that could be the type of relationship we have with our thoughts, right? Or is your relationship more like a stargazer, stargazing? So where you look up and you see the stars, you look at the brightness of them, you observe the shape, the color, right, the movement, but there's more detachment. Okay, you're kind of noticing them, but you feel a little bit more distance from them. And that's something that we'd like to just reflect on and have you kind of think about, what now currently is your relationship like with your thoughts? Do you really feel very connected? And when you think about something, does it really feel very real and that this is what's happening? And to kind of help you shift, perhaps, if that's the case, to a more stargazing connection or type of relationship. Okay, that one change alone, just little by little shifting to this type of relationship, could really help reduce our stress level, and just observe our thoughts or whatever judgments we may have about ourselves or other people, and help keep that arousal level, as we talked about, in a healthier range. Another example, this is a really nice tool, and this is very quick. You can do it anytime, anywhere, and just call it, the world of possibilities. But many of us, right, we default to a negative thought. I think somebody mentioned it, that we kind of think about the negative outcome, right? Or the worst case scenario. So a really nice practice and habit to get into is, when you do that, to also then ask yourself, okay, to allow yourself to have the negative thought, but then ask yourself, what is a more neutral possibility here, or perception that I can have? And then what's even a more positive perception or potential outcome, right? So every time you have a negative, ask yourself, okay, what is also neutral and what is positive? And this will help you balance out the possibilities, right? Because we can't predict the future. So by allowing ourselves to think about what's neutral and what is positive, it'll help keep our arousal level as well in a healthy range. Yes.
So I'm just picking up on this concept. Dana and I both think deeply about these things, come up with our own metaphors, and we wanted to share both of our perspectives in case you connect to one or the other. And so what I like to say when we're talking about mind, by the way, mind, the third centering point, right, is that mind itself is a thought-producing machine, right? It's what it does. So let's get rid of the notion of, I have to stop my thoughts. I have to stop my thoughts. We heard about meditation from you, and I don't subscribe to this particular view of meditation, but instead what Dana says is, how can I relate to my thoughts differently? Do I have to be involved all the time, like the soap opera? I can relate to it with a little bit of a distance. And so how to learn that we do not equal our thoughts, that we're not handmaiden to the thoughts, but we're actually in control. We can kind of step back and look and go, oh yeah, there's that one about my self-esteem. Oh yeah, there's the one about that I'm never going to get all this work done. Yeah, I'm familiar with that, blah, 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 right? And say, oh, just noticing. That can have a powerful impact on how we feel. Another visual for you is, I look at mind like the river that's raging and moving and changing course all the time. And usually we're caught up in the river. We're getting bounced around, we're hitting rocks, we're like tumbling all over the place. So we don't realize that there's eddies on the side of the river, that we can crawl up onto the bank of the river in safety, dry off, and just watch them once in a while. Sometimes we're in them, right? I mean, let's face it, we're human. But sometimes we can step out. So that's good. Other piece to know is that thoughts usually reside, if you're like me, in one or two places. In the past or in the future. If you're spending too much time back there, energy can get low, can feel depressed. Too much time up there, stress, anxiety, right? There's another place. Somebody said it when we opened. Right now. Now, does that mean we have to stay there all the time in every moment? I don't think so. I can't do it. I don't know if how your success has been for meditation, but we can at least bring it back once in a while. What's happening right now? Before we finish with the breath, body, mind, all of these centering points have techniques and practices. We're giving you a couple. The one for this that I happen to like is mindfulness. Mindfulness meditation, mindfulness stress reduction, mindfulness. Lots of mindfulness tags these days. It's very popular, but it's also well-researched and real useful. So that's something we don't have time to expound on, but is good. So those are your 3 centering points, and your second touchstone for today, sort of breath, body, mind, to take with you.